Actually, Jesus has had an impact for 2,000 years on far more than Western civilization. As a matter of fact, right now, Jesus is probably, the evangelism is occurring at a higher pace in places like South Africa than it is in the West, quote unquote.
But let me ask something. Maybe let me play devil's advocate for a second. What if someone comes along and says, and right now we're seeing in a very woke culture where we are always trying to look at something and somehow pin it on a white man and try and blame everything on that sense. So what if someone comes along and says, hey, maybe nothing changed in history. Maybe the white man placed Jesus and broke down AD and BC. Maybe that's why that's placed there. And it's nothing happening in something before, or there's no future fallout. And I know the objection is well answered in the book, but what would be a quick response to something like that?
Well, there's a claim. I think people sometimes will say, well, look, he's had this impact on Western civilization. Why would you be surprised sitting in the middle of a Western civilization that there's somebody who had an impact on yours? Actually, Jesus has had an impact for 2,000 years on far more than Western civilization. As a matter of fact, right now, Jesus is probably, the evangelism is occurring at a higher pace in places like South Africa than it is in the West, quote unquote. It turns out that all those areas I'm talking about in which Jesus has had impact are global areas of impact. It's not just that he has had shaped, for example, let's say the art of the West. It turns out that he is an international phenomenon in terms of, if you look at the masters in any country, you'll find that they are painting Jesus at some point. And you'll see this over and over and over. I try to illustrate this and give maybe 50 or so examples of the kinds of art that have been done about Jesus. You're going to have a hard time denying. This is often said, for example, when it comes to the sciences. I don't know if you knew this or not, but the sciences and the scientific revolution historically is largely indebted to Jesus' followers because he initiated a worldview, and I talk about this in the book, that was the catalyst, the igniter for sciences as we know them. But when you tell people, well, the scientific revolution is like 99% Jesus followers, people will say, well, yeah, but everyone was a Jesus follower. You're talking about Europe in the 16th and 17th century. Well, duh, that's largely a Christian region. Well, hang on though. Globally, there are far more non-Christians and non-Europeans elsewhere than there are Europeans, and science could have been initiated and been a catalyst anywhere on the planet. Why wasn't it? Why does it happen to be that it is in Christendom in those centuries that the scientific revolution ignites? Why is that the case? To say that everyone globally would be a Christian would be one thing, but that was not the case. It turns out it could have just as easily blossomed and ignited in Asia or in Persia or in anywhere else where people were gathered. But it turns out it didn't happen there. It happened under Christendom. Is that a coincidence? Or is there something about the Christian worldview that acts as a catalyst, especially when compared to other philosophies, other spiritual philosophies, other theistic philosophies that existed before Christianity? Was there something liberating and distinctive about Christianity in its view of an orderly God, its view of the importance of matter and being worthy of study, its view of education and the places, the fact that we have educational facilities that we could do science in? Is there something about the Christian worldview that it was a catalyst for this activity? So I think you're right. You could argue, well, look, the only impact Jesus has on the West. But to do that would really be ignorant of where Jesus and his followers are blossoming on the planet today. It's that Jesus, when preached, the Spirit of God moves regardless of region. And then Jesus has this huge impact on culture. So the question is, that's what we're looking at.